Ever feel like the world of law is just kind of full of these invisible lines, and we're like crossing them every day without even, realizing it?
Yeah.
That contract you signed online, the speed limit you hopefully stick to on the highway.
Right.
We're diving into some legal studies material today.
Okay.
And believe me, it's way more interesting than it sounds. We've got excerpts here that break down the basics in a way that's clear, concise, and actually pretty fascinating.
Yeah, I think what's often overlooked is how relevant this stuff is to your everyday life. It's not just about lawyers and courtrooms. It's the foundation of how we interact as a society.
Totally. The text jumps right in, defining law as these general rules of conduct that, govern us. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
But then it hits us with which persons must obey, even by force if need be.
Right.
That escalated quickly.
Yeah.
What are some ways that force or more specifically sanctions come into play?
Well, that's the thing about law. It has teeth. The text breaks down different types of sanctions, and it's worth getting a grasp on these. So we've got penal sanctions, the ones that come to mind first, right?
Yeah.
Fines, imprisonment, those are designed to punish.
Right.
But then you have civil sanctions, and those aim to right wrongs more than punish necessarily.
Give me an example. What does a civil sanction look like in action?
Okay, let's say you hire a contractor to remodel your bathroom, but they end up doing a shoddy job and refuse to fix it.
Yeah.
You could sue them for breach of contract.
Right.
And a civil sanction in this case might be the court ordering them to either complete the job properly or pay you damages to cover the cost of hiring someone else to fix their mess.
So it's about making things right, not just throwing the book at someone.
Exactly.
What about those administrative sanctions? Those sound even more mysterious.
Yeah. Think of licensing boards or government agencies. They have the power to impose administrative sanctions. For instance, if a doctor is found guilty of malpractice, an administrative sanction could be a reprimand, a suspension of their license, or even, complete revocation depending on the severity of the offense.
Wow. So there's a whole range of consequences depending on the type of law being broken. The text also mentioned how different legal systems around the world approach these sanctions in unique ways.
Exactly. It's fascinating. A sanction that might be considered harsh in one culture could be seen as, lenient in another. It all boils down to cultural values, historical context, and how each society views the purpose of law.
It's there's no one-size-fits-all approach to law.
Yeah.
Okay, shifting gears a bit. The text dives into this distinction between legal rules and those kind of unspoken rules. We all live by social norms.
Yeah.
We all know it's not cool to cut in line.
Right.
Or talk loudly during a movie.
Right.
But those aren't exactly codified law, are they?
You've hit on a key point there. Social norms are the informal guidelines for decent behavior. They rely on things like courtesy, tradition, and social pressure to keep things, running smoothly. They might not carry the weight of law, but they're essential for a functioning society.
But sometimes those social norms and actual laws, collide, right?
Right.
Are there ever situations where something might be considered socially acceptable but still illegal?
Absolutely.
Or vice versa.
Think about the changing attitudes towards cannabis use.
Okay.
In many places, it's becoming increasingly socially acceptable, even celebrated, while still being illegal.
Right.
That creates this really interesting tension between what people view as, morally okay and what the law dictates. Yeah. It also highlights how dynamic law is constantly evolving and adapting to changing societal views.
It makes you wonder what other legal gray areas are out there. Right. The text then takes us into the world of public versus private law, a distinction that always trips me up.
Yeah.
Help me out here.
Okay.
Think of public law as anything where the state is involved as a party.
Okay.
It sets the ground rules for how the government itself operates. Mm-hmm. This includes things like constitutional law, which defines the powers of different branches of government,
right,
and criminal law, where the state acts as the prosecutor against individuals who have allegedly broken the law.
So it's about the big picture.
Yes.
The relationship between individuals and the state as a whole.
Exactly.
Not just squabbles between two people.
Precisely. Private law, on the other hand, zooms in on those individual disputes where the state isn't directly involved as a prosecuting party.
Correct.
Things like contract disputes, property disagreements, basically, the rules of engagement for how we interact with each other on a personal or business level.
Okay, that actually makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
The text then delves into sources of law. And I have to admit, this is where I started to feel like I was only like scratching the surface of how much there is to know about different legal systems.
It's a rabbit hole, for sure.
Yeah.
But a fascinating one.
Yeah.
Most legal systems have multiple sources they draw from.
Okay.
And the text uses the Jordanian legal system as a fascinating example.
Yeah, it mentioned something about Islamic law playing a role alongside legislation and custom.
Right.
I'm super curious to unpack that. How do those different sources all like come together in one system?
It's a great illustration of how diverse legal systems can be.
Yeah.
In Jordan, Islamic law holds a significant place, particularly when it comes to matters of family law, like marriage, divorce, and inheritance.
Mm.
But it's not the only source. Legislation passed by the government and even long-established customs also factor in.
So it's like a blend of different influences shaping how the law functions.
Exactly.
It sounds like things could get complicated when you have like multiple sources of law potentially like overlapping.
It definitely adds layers, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's part of what makes studying legal systems so interesting. It's not a one-size-fits-all world out there.
Speaking of complexity, the next section in the text is proof of the right.
Okay.
And honestly, it reads like a detective novel.
Right.
We're talking writing, testimony, presumptions, inspections, declarations, even oaths.
Yeah.
How does anyone keep all that straight?
Well, it highlights how crucial it is to establish truth in legal matters.
Yeah.
Which is often easier said than done.
Right.
Each of those methods you listed has its own strengths and weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
And legal systems have developed, incredibly detailed rules around them over centuries.
It mentioned something called general rules of evidence.
Right.
Is that about making sure things are fair and balanced when it comes to presenting proof?
Exactly. It's all about ensuring that any evidence presented is reliable, first and foremost, relevant to the case at hand, and obtained fairly.
Right.
These rules are there to prevent biased or misleading information from swaying the outcome of a case.
That makes sense. I imagine this whole area of evidence has gotten even more complex with technology entering the picture.
Oh, yeah.
Think about things like digital evidence from social media or the cloud, not to mention the advancements in forensics.
You're absolutely right. What constitutes, proof has evolved drastically over time, and new technologies constantly present new challenges and questions for legal systems to grapple with. It's a constantly evolving field.
The text then throws us a real curveball: moral persons.
Yeah.
I have to admit, this one had me scratching my head.
It's a concept that often trips people up.
Yeah.
Essentially, it's about granting certain entities, specifically corporations, legal rights and responsibilities, similar to those of individuals.
Wait, so you're saying a company can be treated like a person in the eyes of the law?
That's the basic idea, yeah.
How does that even work in practice?
Well, think of it this way. Corporations can enter into contracts, they can own property, they can sue other entities and be sued themselves.
Right.
They have a legal identity separate from the individual people who work for them or own shares in them.
Okay, so instead of holding individual employees responsible for a corporation's actions, the corporation itself can be held liable.
Precisely. It streamlines things from a legal standpoint. Yeah. But as you can imagine, it also raises some, thorny ethical questions.
Right. Like what happens when a corporation's actions cause harm? Let's say a company pollutes a river. Yeah. Or engages in some unethical labor practices. Who is ultimately accountable? Right. It seems like ethically murky territory.
Yeah, it can be. And this is where things get really interesting. Understanding the mechanics of legal concepts is one thing. Yeah. But the real aha moment is when you start to grapple with the bigger implications. Mm-hmm. It's about asking those tough questions about responsibility, ethics, and the role of corporations in society.
It's almost like giving a corporation this moral personhood creates a whole new set of challenges and considerations within like the legal system.
Yeah, it definitely adds complexity, and it forces us to confront some, fundamental questions.
Right.
For example, if a corporation is considered a person, should it be afforded the same rights as individuals under the law? Where do we draw the line? It's a debate that continues to evolve.
It's mind-blowing to think about how these seemingly abstract legal concepts play out in the real world with real consequences.
Right. And it's not just about, understanding the letter of the law, but also the spirit behind it. Why were these laws established in the first place? What societal needs were they intended to address?
It makes you realize that law is so much more than just memorizing a bunch of rules.
Yeah.
It's about grappling with these big picture questions of fairness, justice, and how we govern ourselves as a society.
Absolutely. And this deep dive is, only scratched the surface.
Right.
There are countless fascinating avenues to explore, from the history of how legal systems have developed over centuries to landmark cases that have shaped the way we, interpret the law today.
This has been eye-opening. It's definitely given me a whole new perspective on something I thought I had a handle on.
Yeah.
Who knew legal studies could be so captivating?
It's a testament to how deeply law is interwoven into every aspect of our lives, whether you realize it or not. It's constantly shaping our interactions, our freedoms, and even our understanding of what it means to be a part of a society.
So if you're ready to start questioning assumptions, debating those big ethical dilemmas, and maybe even sparking a few lively discussions of your own, this legal studies material is definitely worth a closer look.
Absolutely. And who knows, you might just find yourself pulled down a rabbit hole of legal history, fascinating cases, and the ever-evolving principles that continue to shape our world today.
Until next time, keep those legal minds sharp. And remember, the law might be complex, but it's there for a reason.